With warmer spring weather, the leaf buds unfold and flower buds begin to grow on the ends of twigs. Honey bees are attracted to the apple flowers by nectar and the scent of the petals. As the bee collects nectar, it also picks up pollen. When the bee lands on a flower on another tree, it brushes against the pistil of the flower, leaving the pollen grains on the sticky stigma. The pollen grains send tubes down through the styles to reach the ovary. Through the filament, the sperm present in the pollen can reach the ovules that are in the ovary. The fertilized ovules will become seeds. And so, the prospects of the coming gallery exhibition hang heavy in the air, before crystallizing as the early spring frost on our budding twins, whilst they sketch ideas for the show's centerpiece. A great iron bell, a metal flower to be raised from the earth and then swung from side to side until eventually the stigma connects with the petals to produce that oh so anticipated sound of the theme from the White, White Day. For the rain. For the clay bought at Lynn. For the expenses of Master John of Gloucester going to Lynn. For the water carriage of the same by water to Ely. For the clay bought at Erith with the water carriage to Ely at the same time. For rods bought once for making the furnace. The account of Cock to Lynn twice for collecting copper and tin. For the expenses of the aforesaid Master John for seeking the same at Northampton and elsewhere on several occasions. For pack thread bought on several occasions. For 200 weights and 20 pounds of tin bought for the same. For 1500 weights of copper bought for the said bells. For 600 weights, 21 pounds of copper bought for the same. For 400 weights and 12 pounds of copper bought for the same. For 500 weights, 65 pounds of white copper bought for the same, whence there is a tret of 9 pounds from the same weight. For beer bought on the day on which the metal of the great bell is melted, beside what was had from the store. For moulds for making 4 bells, and the casting of 4 bells from the aforesaid ore, of the following weight. That is to say, the bell called Prowst, 3700 weights and 52 pounds. The bell called Judie, 2700 weights and 4 pounds. The bell called Jack, 2100 weights and 4 pounds. For a mould for the casting of the 4th bell, called Walsingham, weighing 1800 weights and 4 pounds. For poles for the hanging of the said bells, and wheels for the same according to weight, and divers other things, weighing 300 weights, 65 pounds. For making, for the furnace, and making moulds and pie. For charcoal, bought for the casting of the same. For and water carriage to Ely. For bought for the same. For making ironwork for the 6 bells, hanging in the great belfry of iron, half bought from the bishop's store. For 6 clappers made from iron, half from the said bishop's store, for the expenses of 7 men for 4 weeks. For the expenses of Roger the carpenter hanging the aforesaid 6 bells. Clement himself with his boy on horse. For 6 cords bought for the aforesaid bells, given to the boys of the aforesaid masters John and Roger at their departure. For 100 weight of iron. For making staples and hasps from it. For 2 horse eyes bought for making baldrigs thereof. For making the same. For thread bought. For soles bought for the said baldrigs. For 100 reeds bought at Thorney for fuel. For water carriage of the same name to Ely. For the rain.
Moving on to literature now. Question 33. Which Russian author wrote the novel Crime and Punishment? Which Russian author wrote the novel Crime and Punishment?
I'll do all the same.
I'm looking for his surname, by the way, don't have to do his first name.
Have you shot sights?
Question 34. Of Mice and Men was written by which author? Of Mice and Men was written by
I just
which
saw them for the
author?
first time because I don't have Instagram, but then Nick showed me your drawings and I was like, and I forgot how your drawings were so good, like makes you do like good stuff.
I've got such, I keep going like proper to books, but it's something
That's like
it's really funny when it's got a figgy on the front.
Question 35. Which biblical characters are also the main characters in Milton's Paradise?
Oh no, that's one of the plans.
Which biblical characters are also the main characters in Milton's
Oh, mine's
Paradise?
the red cover with like the pink colours.
For a long time, I went to bed early and dreamt clearly. Those particularly restful nights when one can so easily let a train of thought slip into that unconscious absurdity. I think at the time I was trying to grasp for an earliest memory of some kind. I can remember being in a garden watching for hours all the little bits of drama unfold between the insects and plants. Then, as though remembering something even more distant, I saw a tree. But not as myself. It was as if the ground beneath me was a sort of horizontal plane through which I was reflected, and it was no longer me that was the subject experiencing the world in its immediacy, but rather I was the reflection, a perfectly mirrored image of my own thoughts and ideas. For the tree, however, this was not the case. Its reflection did not possess the same branches and leaves as its original, as you would expect in such a phenomenon. It was formed only of roots, a great mass of tangled, serpentine roots stretching out before me that only in silhouette reflected its other half. Essentially, it was as if I was in some kind of upside-down mirrored world that functioned independently from the one I knew to be real, a sort of reflection with its own free will. Anyway, standing before this upside-down tree, I noticed one of the roots bore a single fruit, a melon or apple that, in its colour, had all the qualities of fire. Unsurprisingly, it was warm to the touch, and I took it from the tree and found that within this foreign fruit there were two embryos, reflected in the core. They were human in form, and I saw fit to nurture their development. I brought them home to my house in the countryside and sheltered them from the elements. They were twins, and it wasn't long before I could discern the gender of each fetus. On the left, a female I called Judie, and on the right, a male I called Jack. Over the next 7 years, we lived quite happily together. I wrote often, sometimes documenting my newfound family, sometimes fiction. I'd even drawn some promising attention from the local publishers. The twins, though at first seemingly indistinguishable in physicality and character, began, over time, to develop subtle nuances in their personalities. Judie started to show signs of some great talent for creativity, a completely unique way of interpreting and communicating the world around her, whilst Jack, though keen, was nonchalant and careless with the arts, never really putting his heart in it. But then, on the other hand, Jack displayed great entrepreneurial ambition, savvy yet friendly, a real gift for the gab, so to speak. Almost the complete antithesis of Judie's humble but shy approach. And despite these differences, they got along extraordinarily well together. A very proactive, if not a touch pessimistic team. In other words, they were the perfect artistic duo, the sellout with integrity, the positive pessimist. And as you'd expect, it wasn't long before the art world took interest. Word got out and they became very popular. People from all over the town were gathered to experience their work. Then, after a couple of years of this growing excitement, when the twins were around 6 or 7, it was decided the town would hold a big gallery exhibition to celebrate their work. They would exhibit the whole back catalogue from recent years, plus a new piece, made specifically for the show, and not only the townspeople would come, but art lovers and critics from the city too. It would be their big break. But no one could have prepared me for what was to happen on that fateful or autumnal night when those 7 happy years so abruptly came to an end.
scary stones. Love that, Alex. Nice action. That was nice.